Alderman Ray Lopez joins us now over the phone. Alderman, can you hear us?
Anthony, Sally, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you, sir. Let me start off by asking you, what was your reaction when you saw the video itself?
You know, the video, I saw one of the videos. I didn't need to get into any of the others. You know, it's a heart-wrenching experience to watch that unfold and to know that this isn't fiction. This is real life happening on our streets. The tragedy that unfolded in that alley is almost beyond description. But we know that it could have been so much worse, and the headline could have been so much different if the officer hadn't fired that single shot, as well as recognizing the fact that gangs overwhelmingly are bringing us to this point that we found ourselves in that alley that evening and every day throughout communities in the city of Chicago.
Alderman, I got to ask you, because we've been looking at this video as they come in. I'm clearly not an expert on this kind of thing, and it's hard to see. I haven't been able to get a close-up look, but to me, it looks like he's got his hands up. I don't see a gun. I was looking at tweets from you, though, and you say that the gun was behind his back and was lost mid-turn just before he was fired upon. Tell me what you saw.
Yes, Sally. There's a tweet that I have shared that shows the gun was behind him when he was turning, possibly coming out of his clothing, and lost when he turned and was fired upon. You know, the reality is that if an officer knows that there's a suspect, particularly a fleeing suspect, when shots are fired and we know that, you know, ShotSpotter recorded the shots, they are in an armed and dangerous situation. And any offender that makes those kind of movements is automatically going to be considered a threat to the officer. And I think that officer in particular showed amazing restraint with only one bullet and still trying to resuscitate the young man afterwards.
But Alderman, he's 13.
In a dark alley, when an officer knows there's somebody in front of them with a weapon shooting, you know, the headline could have been very different, Sally. The headline could have been, you know, 13-year-old man shoots and kills a police officer, if that officer had not taken effort to protect his own life. These are decisions that they have to make, and in this case, in 0.8 of a second. And my heart goes out to the fact that he is, in fact, a 13-year-old that was being recruited by a 21-year-old, six-time arrested gang member. And that is why we need to make sure that we call out the gangs in our midst and those that enable them, trying to steal our children away from the families and show them a different family that only leads to sadness and death.
Alderman, we heard from one of the community leaders down in the Little Village neighborhood who immediately called for this officer's name to be released, immediately called for this officer to be fired from the Chicago Police Department. What's your response to that?
I think the officer and his family are owed due process as this unfolds. If the situation is found to be where the officer was in error, then absolutely his name and identity should be made public. But if this is a justified shooting as defined by the law, then I don't think that there's any reason to publicly cause him harm by releasing his name further for the sole purpose of harassment.
Again, you mentioned that you also blame gangs for what happened here on this tragic night, and you had written earlier that silent gang enablers share responsibility for that. What do you think needs to happen?
You know, fighting gangs is nothing new to me or the communities I represent. It is well known what my views are on gangs and the efforts to try to recruit our children. And oftentimes our schools, our churches, and organizations know that gangs are doing exactly that, recruiting our children at ever younger ages into the gang lifestyle that ultimately will be their undoing. We need to stop protecting these gangs. We need to start calling them out for the danger that they are to our communities and to our youth. We cannot simply be quiet. We cannot just assume that hugs and kisses is going to change or more money for more programs. There are people who are genuinely committed to this lifestyle, and we have to root them out at every turn. We cannot afford to be silent because there will always be another Adam Toledo in the future.
Alderman, any other messages that you'd want constituents of your ward there in the 15th ward to hear from you this afternoon with such I mean, this is so fresh for everybody. Everybody's getting their first look at this video right now. Emotions are really running high.
You know, my message to everyone, my resident or not, is to take a step back and take a deep breath. This is a very traumatizing video. The whole situation from start to finish is traumatic, but we have to take a step back. We cannot, for 3 weeks, many on all sides of the city have been formulating their own opinions. And either today's going to prove them right or prove them wrong, depending on what those people believe. But at the end of the day, this city must be able to heal and move forward so that this tragedy never repeats itself. And if we don't learn anything from what has unfolded, we will continue to see this type of scenario play out in alleys and streets throughout every Chicago neighborhood for months and years to come. It must stop.